The small human probe drifted through space like a lost child. It had been traveling for 3 months since leaving Earth's solar system. The metal cylinder was no bigger than a school bus, packed with cameras and computers. Its mission was simple: find new worlds and take pictures. Captain Sarah Chun watched the probe's data stream on her monitor at Mission Control in Houston. Everything looked normal until the readings went crazy. The probe had found something impossible. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around a massive structure that shouldn't exist. "Ma'am, you need to see this," called out Lieutenant Rodriguez from his station. His voice shook with excitement and fear. Sarah rushed over to his screen. What she saw made her heart stop. The probe's cameras showed a space station bigger than Earth's moon. It was covered in lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Strange ships moved around it, like metal fish swimming in an ocean of stars. "Are we seeing this right?" Sarah asked. She had trained for first contact scenarios, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. The answer came faster than anyone expected. The probe's radio crackled to life with a voice speaking perfect English. "Human vessel, you have entered Galactic Council space without permission. Prepare to receive an official communication." Sarah's hands trembled as she reached for the microphone. "This is Earth Mission Control. We come in peace." "Your intentions are noted, but irrelevant," the voice replied coldly. "A representative will arrive at your homeworld in 72 standard hours. Prepare your leaders for an important message." The transmission ended. The probe's cameras showed one of the strange ships breaking away from the station. It was heading toward Earth at impossible speed. Sarah grabbed the red phone that connected her directly to the president. "Sir, we have a situation." 2 days later, the alien ship appeared above Earth, like a dark cloud blotting out the sun. It was 3 miles long and shaped like a crystal teardrop. No weapons were visible, but the ship's presence made every human on the planet feel small and helpless. The United Earth Assembly gathered in emergency session. Presidents, prime ministers, and world leaders filled the Great Hall in New York. Outside, billions of people watched their screens, waiting to learn humanity's fate. The alien ship sent down a small craft that landed on the assembly building's roof. From it stepped a creature that looked almost human, but wrong in subtle ways. Its skin was pale blue, its eyes were silver, and it moved with the grace of someone who had lived for centuries. High Arbitrator Kethvar walked into the assembly hall, wearing robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, a translator device. Around his neck turned his words into every human language at once. "I am Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council," he announced. His voice echoed in the silent hall. "For 50,000 years, we have maintained peace among 847 civilizations. Today, we extend our authority to Earth." President Martinez of the Earth Federation stood up slowly. "We welcome peaceful contact with other civilizations." Kethvar's silver eyes showed no emotion. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. It is an announcement of terms." He touched a device on his wrist. Above the assembly, a hologram appeared showing the galaxy itself. Thousands of star systems glowed in different colors. "The red systems belong to Council member species," Kethvar explained. "They enjoy our protection and advanced technology. The blue systems are restricted zones where younger species live under our guidance. You will choose which category Earth joins." The hologram zoomed in to show a dozen worlds with the same blue glow. On each planet, strange cities rose from the surface, but they all looked the same. The beings living there moved slowly, without purpose, like people who had forgotten how to dream. "The blue worlds are reservation planets," Kethvar continued. "Younger species live there while they learn to become civilized. Most graduate to full membership after a few thousand years." "And if we refuse both options?" President Martinez asked, though he already feared the answer. The hologram changed to show a dead star system. Broken planets drifted through space, like scattered bones. Species that refuse council authority are removed, Kethver said simply. This has happened 37 times in galactic history. It is always regrettable, but sometimes necessary. The assembly hall erupted in angry voices. Representatives from every nation shouted questions and protests. Kethver waited patiently for the noise to die down. You have 72 hours to make your choice, he said when silence returned. Every species in council history has chosen submission within this time frame. It is the logical response to overwhelming force. Secretary General Williams stood up. She was an elderly woman who had spent her life in diplomacy. What exactly would submission mean for humanity? You would relocate your population to designated worlds. Your military would be disbanded. Your technology would be restricted to approved levels. In return, you would receive our protection and guidance. And our freedom? Williams asked. Freedom is a primitive concept that leads to chaos and war. Kethvar replied, the council brings order and peace. This is better than freedom. The alien representative turned and walked toward the exit. I will return in 72 hours for your answer. Consider your choice carefully. No species has ever survived choosing defiance. As his ship lifted away from Earth, the world's leaders remained in emergency session. The debate raged for hours. Some argued for submission, pointing out the terrible cost of resistance. Others demanded that humanity fight for its independence, no matter the odds. President Martinez called for quiet. We need to think about this clearly. We've seen what happens to species that say no. We've also seen what happens to those that say yes. Those blue worlds looked like prisons to me. But we'd be alive, argued Prime Minister Singh. Our people would survive? Would they? Asked President Chun of the Asian Alliance. Those beings on the reservation worlds didn't look human anymore. They looked broken. The debate continued through the night and into the next day. Reports came in from around the world. Some cities had riots as people demanded their leaders surrender. Others had rallies calling for resistance. On the second day, a curious thing happened. A message arrived at the assembly from an unexpected source. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenobiologist who had been studying the alien transmissions, made a disturbing discovery. I've been analyzing the signals from those blue worlds, she announced to the emergency session. The beings there aren't just restricted in their technology. Their brain patterns have been altered. They've been chemically modified to remove aggression, creativity, and independent thought. A chill fell over the assembly. The choice was even worse than they had thought. Submit and become living robots, or resist and face extinction. The 72 hours passed quickly. When Kethver returned to the assembly hall, he found the world's leaders waiting for him with grim faces. Have you reached a decision? The alien asked. President Martinez stood up. Behind him sat every elected leader on Earth. They had voted, and the result was closer than anyone wanted to admit. But democracy had spoken. High Arbitrator Kethver, Martinez said formally, we thank you for your offer, but humanity must respectfully decline. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Kethver showed emotion. His silver eyes widened in genuine surprise. You choose extinction over the peace we offer? We choose freedom over existence without hope, Martinez replied. Kethver stared at the human leaders for a long moment. In 50,000 years of council expansion, no species had ever given this answer. Every civilization eventually chose survival over principle. You do not understand what you have chosen, the alien said slowly. But you will learn. The siege begins at dawn. As Kethver's ship lifted away from Earth for the final time, humanity prepared for war against impossible odds. They had chosen the hardest path, but it was the only one they could live with. The galaxy was about to discover what humans meant when they said freedom was worth any price. The Council fleet arrived at Earth's solar system like a storm made of metal and light. 200 massive ships took positions around the sun, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. They formed a perfect sphere around Earth's solar system, blocking every possible escape route. High Arbitrator Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Order. Through the viewing screen, he could see the small blue planet that had dared to refuse the Council's offer. It looked so peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over green and brown continents. "Sir, should we begin the bombardment?" asked Commander Zerth, his military advisor. The reptilian officer's scales shifted color with excitement. "No," Kethver said calmly. "We follow standard siege protocol. Show them our power, then wait for them to surrender. It always works." The alien commander had run 43 successful sieges in his long career. Every species broke within weeks when they saw the Council's overwhelming force. Humans would be no different. On Earth, every telescope and radar dish pointed toward the sky. The alien ships were impossible to miss. Each one was a city in space, bristling with weapons and glowing with strange energy. The message was clear. Resistance was hopeless. General Patricia Hayes stood in the Pentagon's war room, studying the holographic display that showed the enemy positions. She had spent 30 years in the military, but nothing had prepared her for this. "How many ships?" she asked her aide. 200 confirmed, ma'am. Each one is at least 5 miles long. Our best estimates put their total firepower at enough to crack continents." General Hayes nodded grimly. The aliens wanted Earth to know exactly how outmatched they were. It was psychological warfare at its finest. "Any communication from them?" "Yes, ma'am. They're broadcasting the same message on all frequencies." The main screen showed Kethver's face. He looked tired, as if this was just another boring job. "People of Earth," the alien said in perfect English, "your leaders have made a foolish choice. You now see the power arranged against you. We will wait exactly 1 standard month for you to reconsider. During this time, nothing will enter or leave your system. Choose wisely." The broadcast ended, leaving Earth in an eerie silence. No ships moved between the planets. No signals reached. The outside galaxy. Humanity was completely cut off from the universe. President Martinez called another emergency session. This time, the mood in the assembly hall was different. Fear hung in the air like smoke. Several representatives had already changed their minds about resistance. "We have to surrender," pleaded Minister Jackson from the European Federation. "Look, at those ships, we can't fight that." "If we surrender now, we lose everything," replied President Chun. "At least if we fight, we die as free people." The debate raged for hours. Outside, crowds gathered in every major city. Some demanded surrender. Others called for resistance to the end. The world had never been more divided. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood up during the session. The xenobiologist had been studying the alien transmissions since first contact. "I've learned something important," she announced. "The Council isn't trying to destroy us quickly because they want us alive. Dead species can't work in their empire." "What's your point?" asked Secretary General Williams. "They need us to surrender willingly. If they just blast Earth to pieces, they get nothing. But if they can break our will, they get another slave species." This sparked new arguments. Some saw it as hope that the aliens wouldn't actually attack. Others worried it meant the Council would find worse ways to break humanity's spirit. Answer came 3 days later. Council ships began jamming all Earth's communications satellites. Television, radio, and internet signals died across the planet. Suddenly, billions of people couldn't talk to each other except in person. Then the aliens started their broadcasts. Every screen on Earth showed the same images. Council worlds at peace. Beautiful cities where different species worked together. Advanced technology that had ended disease and hunger. The message was simple. This could be yours if you just say yes. But they also showed the other side. The holographic displays revealed the broken remains of worlds that had refused council rule. Dead planets spinning in space. The skeletons of once great civilizations scattered among the stars. This is what happens to species that choose pride over wisdom. Kethver's voice explained over the images. 37 civilizations have made the wrong choice. Their names are forgotten. Their achievements are dust. The psychological pressure was enormous. Every day, more people demanded surrender. Protests filled the streets of major cities. Some government officials resigned rather than continue the resistance. But something unexpected happened. Instead of breaking, many humans became more determined. They remembered stories their grandparents told about fighting against overwhelming odds. They thought about slaves and tyrants throughout history, and how freedom had always come at a terrible price. Small groups began working in secret. Scientists studied the alien broadcasts, looking for weaknesses. Engineers examined the enemy ships through telescopes, trying to understand their technology. Military officers planned for impossible battles. Dr. James Park, a physicist at MIT, made the first breakthrough. He noticed that the council ships used a type of energy field to travel faster than light. By analyzing the signatures, he figured out how it worked. It's not magic, he told his research team. It's just physics we haven't learned yet. And if they can do it, so can we. The work began in hidden laboratories around the world. Using the alien broadcasts as a guide, human scientists started reverse engineering council technology. Progress was slow, but it was progress. Meanwhile, the siege continued. The council ships hung in space like patient predators, waiting for Earth to give up. On the bridge of the Eternal Order, Kethver grew increasingly puzzled. How long has it been? He asked Commander Zerth. 3 weeks, sir. Most species surrender. By now. Send another broadcast. Increase the pressure. The new message was harsher. The aliens showed detailed plans of how they would destroy Earth cities one by one. They displayed the exact weapons they would use. They even included a countdown timer showing how long humanity had left. 10 days, Kethver announced. In 10 days, if you have not surrendered, we will begin orbital bombardment. Your largest cities will be destroyed first. New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing. Then we will work our way down to smaller targets. This is not a threat. It is a promise. The countdown appeared on every screen on Earth. 10 days, then 9, then 8. Each passing day brought humanity closer to annihilation. But instead of surrender, something else happened. On day 7, the first human ship launched from a hidden base in the Australian desert. It was crude compared to Council technology, but it worked. The small craft used a copy of alien faster-than-light travel to slip past the siege fleet undetected. More ships followed. Tiny vessels carrying small groups of humans escaped the solar system and scattered across nearby star systems. They carried seeds, DNA samples, and everything needed to start new colonies. If Earth died, humanity would survive. The Council detected the escapes on day 5. Kethver stared at the reports in disbelief. How is this possible? He demanded. They don't have faster-than-light technology. They do now, sir, Commander Zarth replied nervously. Our analysis shows they copied our drive systems. For the first time in 50,000 years, a primitive species had stolen Council technology and made it work. It should have been impossible. Young civilizations didn't have the knowledge or skill to reverse engineer such complex systems, but humans had done it anyway. Kethvar realized he faced something new in galactic history. These humans weren't just refusing to surrender. They were adapting. They were learning. They were becoming dangerous. The countdown reached 0. Kethvar stood on his bridge, looking down at the small blue planet that had defied the greatest empire in the galaxy. "Begin bombardment," he ordered quietly. But as the first council weapons fired, Kethvar wondered if he had already lost something more important than a simple siege. For the first time in his long life, he felt afraid of what might come next. The war for humanity's freedom had truly begun. 3 years had passed since the first council bombs fell on Earth. High Arbitrator Kethvar stood in his war room aboard the Eternal Order, staring at a holographic map of human space. What he saw made his ancient blood run cold. Where once there had been a single blue dot representing Earth. Now dozens of red markers showed human colonies scattered across 43 star systems. Each marker represented another failure, another place where the humans had somehow escaped his forces. "Report," Kethvar ordered his intelligence officer, Commander Vexara. A tall insectoid being with multifaceted eyes clicked her mandibles. Nervously, "Sir, the humans have established new colonies in the Kepler sector, the Wolf system, and 3 previously unexplored regions. They're calling this new territory the Human Federation. How many colonies now?" 87 confirmed. "Settlements, sir. But our scouts estimate there could be twice that number in hidden locations." Kethvar's fists clenched. The siege of Earth was supposed to have ended in days. Instead, it had become a grinding war that consumed resources and ships at an alarming rate. Even worse, other council members were starting to ask difficult questions. The humans had proven to be unlike any enemy the council had ever faced. They didn't fight like civilized species, with organized fleets meeting in formal battle. Instead, they struck from shadows, used tricks that violated every rule of proper warfare, and refused to stay defeated. Last month, human raiders had destroyed a council supply depot using an asteroid. They had somehow moved and accelerated to incredible speed. The week before that, they had captured an entire council squadron by hiding ships inside a gas giant's atmosphere. "What about their technology levels?" Kethvar asked. "Advancing rapidly, sir. They've reverse-engineered our shield systems, improved our weapons designs, and created new ship types we've never seen before. Their latest vessels are actually faster than our own." This was the part that truly terrified Kethvar. Young species weren't supposed to be able to improve on council technology. The Galactic Council had perfected their designs over 50,000 years. Yet somehow, these primitive humans were making them better. On the human colony of New Geneva, Admiral Sarah Chun walked through the underground command center carved into the planet's rocky core. She had been promoted from probe mission captain to head of all human military operations. The transformation still amazed her. "Status report," she asked her aide, Colonel Martinez. He was the son of the former Earth president, and like many second-generation colonists, he had grown up knowing only war. 17 new colonies established this month," Martinez replied. "The Mayflower expedition found 3 habitable worlds in the Outer Rim. The Prometheus group successfully established mining operations in the asteroid belt of System 47. Sarah nodded. Humanity's strategy was simple. Spread faster than the Council could track them. Every new colony was another chance for survival. Every hidden base was another thorn in the Council's side. What about weapons production? The new shipyards in the Titan system are ahead of schedule. We'll have 50 new attack ships ready for deployment next month. The scientists at Research Station Alpha have also finished testing the new plasma cannon design. Sarah smiled grimly. The plasma cannons were a human improvement on Council energy weapons. They hit harder and used less power. Small advantages like this were adding up to change the balance of the war. Any word from the infiltration teams? Team 7 successfully planted surveillance devices on 3 Council ships. Team 12 rescued another group of human prisoners from the labor camps on Zarian Prime. The rescue missions were Sarah's idea. The Council had captured thousands of humans during the early raids and sent them to work camps on various worlds. But humans had a saying, "Leave no one behind." Every rescue mission was dangerous, but they never stopped trying. On the Council world of Centauri Prime, the Galactic Assembly was meeting in emergency session. Representatives from 847 different species filled the massive chamber, but the mood was far from peaceful. What had started as a simple human problem was becoming a crisis that threatened the entire Council. High Counselor Tyshawn of the ancient Zephyrian Empire called for order. His blue skin had grown pale with worry over the past 3 years. "The human situation requires immediate discussion," he announced. "The siege has lasted far longer than projected and consumed more resources than anticipated." Counselor Vrektor of the hegemony of Klax stood up. His species looked like walking crystals, and his voice rang like broken glass. 3 years ago, you assured us this would be a simple matter, a demonstration of force to bring another primitive species into line. Instead, we have spent enough resources to build 1,000 new cities. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The war with humanity was bleeding the Council dry. Ships, weapons, fuel, and personnel were being consumed at rates that made even the richest worlds nervous. "The humans are more adaptable than we anticipated," Tyshawn admitted, "but they are still just one species. We have the combined might of nearly 1,000 civilizations." "Do we?" asked Counselor Minthara of the Twilight Confederacy. Her species had bird-like features and bright golden eyes. "How many of our member worlds have quietly reduced their contributions to this war? How many colonies have started asking why they should pay for a conflict that grows more expensive every day?" This touched on the Council's deepest fear. For 50,000 years, their empire had been held together by the promise of protection and the threat of overwhelming force. But the humans had shown that the Council could be fought. Worse, they had proven that resistance was possible. Intelligence reports were coming in from across the galaxy. On 17 different worlds, subjugated species were asking questions about independence. 3 planets had actually stopped sending tribute to the Council, claiming they needed the resources for local defense. Back in human space, the war had evolved in ways that amazed both sides. Human engineers had learned to hide entire fleets inside hollowed-out asteroids. Human tacticians had developed new battle strategies that confused Council commanders who had fought the same way for millennia. But the humans' greatest weapon wasn't technology or tactics. It was their refusal to give up. Captain James Park, son of the physicist who had first cracked Council technology, commanded the human destroyer Defiance. His ship was one of the new designs, sleek and fast, built for hit and run. "Attacks. Council convoy spotted in Sector 7, reported his sensor officer. 3 heavy cruisers escorting supply ships. "Attack pattern Delta," James ordered. "Remember, we hit hard and fast, then disappear before they can respond." The Defiance and 5 other human ships materialized out of faster-than-light travel, right in the middle of the Council formation. Their weapons fired in perfect coordination, crippling 2 of the cruisers before the aliens could react. But instead of staying to fight, the human ships vanished again, jumping away to safety. They left behind disabled Council vessels and stolen supplies, but more importantly, they left behind fear. This was happening all across the war zone. Human ships appeared without warning, struck hard, and vanished before the Council could mount an effective response. It was a type of warfare that violated every principle the Council understood about proper military conduct: On Zentari Prime, High Counselor Taishan reviewed the latest battle reports with growing despair. The humans weren't winning in any traditional sense. They had fewer ships, less territory, and smaller numbers than the Council. But they weren't losing either. Every month that passed, humanity grew stronger. Every successful raid brought them new technology and resources. Every rescued prisoner became another soldier in their growing army. How is this possible? Taishan asked his military advisor, General Kor Vex. They're primitives. They should have surrendered or died by now. Sir, I believe we fundamentally misunderstood what we were facing, the general replied. These humans don't think like other species. Where we see hopeless odds, they see a challenge. Where we see the logic of surrender, they see the necessity of resistance. The truth was becoming clear to the Council leadership, though few wanted to admit it. The humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had turned the Council's greatest strength into a weakness. For 50,000 years, the Council had ruled through fear of their overwhelming power. But the humans had shown that power could be fought, avoided, and even defeated through cleverness and determination. As reports came in of yet another human victory. This time, a daring raid that had freed an entire planet of political prisoners. Taishan realized the horrible truth. The Council wasn't just fighting a war against humanity. They were fighting a war against the idea that freedom was possible. And ideas, as they were learning, were much harder to kill than ships or planets. In the depths of space, human colonies continued to multiply like seeds in fertile soil. Each new world was another chance for humanity's children to grow up free. Each successful battle was another proof that even the mightiest empires could be challenged. The war that was supposed to end in days had become a struggle that would reshape the galaxy. And humanity, despite all odds, was not just surviving. They were winning. 5 years into the war, the first crack in the Galactic Council appeared in the most unexpected place. The Minervan Collective, a peaceful trading federation of 12 worlds, announced they were withdrawing all ships from the human conflict. Ambassador Telora of the Minervans stood before the Galactic Assembly with her forearms crossed in a gesture of finality. Her purple skin had darkened with stress, and her large eyes showed the exhaustion that many council members now felt. "We can no longer justify the cost," she declared to the shocked assembly. "Our worlds have contributed 47 ships and 10,000 personnel to this war. We have lost 18 ships and 3,000 lives. For what? To force one species to accept our protection?" High Counselor Taishan rose from his seat, his ancient face twisted with anger. "You dare question 5 decades of successful council? Policy? I question a policy that has cost us more in 5 years than the previous century of expansion." Telora replied firmly. "The humans are not attacking our worlds. They are not threatening our trade routes. They simply want to be left alone." The assembly erupted in heated debate. Other representatives began voicing similar concerns. The Aquatic Confederation mentioned their growing fleet maintenance costs. The Silicon Brotherhood complained about supply shortages. The Verdant Alliance questioned why they were fighting beings who had never threatened them. For the first time in galactic history, member species were openly criticizing a council military action. High Arbitrator Kethfer watched the proceedings from his private viewing chamber. His silver eyes had lost their cold confidence, replaced by something approaching desperation. The simple siege that should have ended in days had become a nightmare that consumed everything he touched. The humans had done more than resist, had inspired doubt in the very foundations of council authority. That doubt was spreading like a virus throughout the galaxy. On the human colony world of New Sparta, Admiral Sarah Chun received news that changed everything. Intelligence Officer Williams rushed into her command center with a datapad clutched in her shaking hands. "Ma'am, you need to see this immediately," Williams said. We've intercepted Council communications from 3 different sectors. Sarah took the pad and read the translated messages. Her eyes widened with each line. "The Altarian Republic has declared independence?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. They announced they're no longer sending tribute to the Council. They've also asked for our assistance in defending their worlds." Sarah scrolled through more messages. The Altarians weren't alone. The Tau Ceti Union had stopped cooperating with Council authorities. The free colonies of Kepler had ejected all Council representatives from their space. "How many worlds are we talking about?" Sarah asked. 17 systems have declared independence in the past month. Another 43 have reduced their cooperation with Council authorities. The movement is spreading faster than Council forces can respond. Sarah sat down heavily in her chair. When humanity had first refused the Council's ultimatum, they had been alone in the galaxy. Now, dozens of worlds were following their example. The idea of resistance was contagious. On the Council world of Xerion Prime, planetary governor Mexif faced a crisis that would have been unthinkable 5 years earlier. His world's native population, the peaceful Xerions, had organized themselves into something they called a freedom movement. The Xerions had been under Council rule for 800 years. They had accepted their status as a subjugated species without question, working in the mines and factories that fed the Council war machine. But lately, they had been asking dangerous questions. Why do we work for them? The questions began. What gives them the right to rule us? If humans can fight back, why can't we? Governor Mexif stood on his palace balcony, looking down at crowds of Xerions gathering in the streets below. They carried signs written in their native language, but the meaning was clear in any tongue. Freedom for Xerion and end Council rule. His communications officer approached nervously. "Sir, we have similar reports from 11 other Council worlds. The administrators are requesting military support to maintain order." "What does High Command say?" Mexif asked. A single quotes read ... "Unavailable. Sir, all Council fleets are committed to the human conflict." This was the Council's greatest nightmare coming true. For 50,000 years, they had maintained control through the promise of protection and the threat of overwhelming retaliation. But now their forces were spread thin across human space, fighting a war they couldn't win, but couldn't afford to lose. The subjugated species across the galaxy were beginning to realize they outnumbered their rulers by millions to 1 inhuman. Space, the war had evolved beyond simple military conflict. Human scientists had not only matched Council technology, but were beginning to surpass it in key areas. The newest human ships were faster and more maneuverable than anything the Council. H.A. Dr. Alina Vasquez, now head of the Human Scientific Coalition, made daily breakthroughs that shocked even her own people. In her laboratory on Research Station Prometheus, she studied captured Council technology with an enthusiasm that bordered on obsession. "The problem with Council designs," she explained to her research team, "is that they haven't had real competition. In 50,000 years, their technology has stagnated. They build things the same way because nobody ever forced them to innovate." Her latest creation was a new type of ship drive that could jump between star systems without the charging time Council drives required. Human ships could now appear anywhere instantly, strike, and vanish before the enemy could respond. "We're not just winning battles," Dr. Vasquez continued. "We're leapfrogging ahead of them technologically. Give us another 5 years, and we'll be building things they can't even understand." But the humans' greatest achievement wasn't technological. It was diplomatic. Captain Maria Santos commanded the human cruiser Liberation. Her mission was unlike anything in military history. She was liberating Council prison worlds and recruiting new allies for humanity's cause. Her current target was the penal colony of Grimrock, where the Council sent political prisoners from across the galaxy. The planet was guarded by only a small garrison, most of the Council fleet being tied up in other conflicts. The Liberation materialized in orbit without warning. Santu's crew quickly disabled the orbital defense platforms. Wow. Assault teams landed on the surface. This is Captain Santos of the Human Federation. She broadcast to the prison camps below. We're here to offer you freedom. Anyone who wants to leave this place is welcome to join us. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of beings from dozens of different species rushed to the human landing sites. They were rebels, free thinkers, and independence activists who had been imprisoned for daring to question Council authority. Among them was someone special, former Council Admiral Vextal of the Andromedian League. He had been imprisoned for refusing to bombard a civilian population during a previous Council pacification operation. Why are you doing this? Vextal asked Santos as the Liberation prepared to leave Grimrock. Because nobody should be imprisoned. For wanting freedom, Santos replied. And because we need allies who understand how the Council really works. Vextal studied the human captain with new respect. His species had served the Council for 3,000 years, but they had never been offered true partnership. The humans were treating him as an equal, not a subject. What do you need me to do? He asked. Back on Centauri Prime, the Council leadership faced a crisis that threatened to tear their empire apart. Intelligence reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Rebellion was spreading like wildfire from system to system. High Counselor Taishan called an emergency meeting of the Inner Circle, the most powerful Council members. The chamber was half empty, many representatives having been recalled to deal with problems in their own territories. The situation is worse than we thought, Taishan announced. 73 worlds have now declared independence. Another 150 have stopped sending tribute. Entire sectors are falling out of our control. General Corvex provided the military assessment. Sir, we simply don't have enough ships to maintain the siege of human space and suppress rebellions across the galaxy. If we pull forces from the human front, they'll expand even faster. If we don't, we'll lose half our territory to local independence movements. What about negotiating with the humans? Suggested Counselor Minthara. Perhaps we can reach some accommodation. The suggestion was met with horrified silence. The Council had never negotiated with a species as equals. The very idea violated everything they stood for. But Taishan was beginning to realize they might not have a choice. High Arbitrator Kethfor received the summons to return to Centauri Prime with a mixture of relief and dread. His 5-year siege of humanity had accomplished nothing except bleeding the Council white. He had lost more ships to human raids than he had destroyed. Worse, every day brought news of fresh rebellions inspired by human resistance. As his flagship jumped to faster-than-light travel for the journey home, Kethfor reflected on the impossible situation. The humans had done something no military strategist had thought possible. They had turned their weakness into strength by inspiring others to fight. The galaxy was burning with the fire of independence, and humanity had. 10 years after first contact, High Arbitrator Kethfor stood in the ruins of the once mighty Council chambers on Centauri Prime. Half the seats in the Great Assembly Hall sat empty. Representatives who had once commanded fleets and ruled star systems were gone, recalled to defend their own crumbling territories. The holographic display at the center of the chamber told the story of complete disaster. Where once the galaxy had been painted in Council blue, now vast swaths of space glowed with the colors of independence. Red markers showed human-controlled territory that now spanned 200 star systems. Green dots marked the 47 species that had declared independence and successfully defended it. Yellow indicated the 73 worlds that had stopped acknowledging Council authority entirely. Only a small core of blue remained around the galaxy's center, and even that was shrinking daily. High Counselor Taishan looked like he had aged 1,000 years in the past decade. His blue skin had turned pale gray, and his once confident voice now carried the weight of absolute defeat. "The final reports," he announced to the scattered remains of the assembly. "The Minervan Collective has formally allied with the Human Federation. The Altarian Republic has joined what they're calling the Free Galaxy Alliance. Even our oldest members are questioning their loyalty." Kethfer listened to the litany of failures with growing numbness. Every world that fell was a personal defeat. Every successful rebellion was proof that his life's work had been built on lies. The humans had done the impossible. They had shown the galaxy that the Council's empire was nothing more than a house of cards, held together by fear and tradition. When enough people stopped being afraid, the whole structure collapsed. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Yerdan, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. They're requesting permission to approach Centauri Prime." "They're what?" Taishan asked in disbelief. "They say they want to negotiate an end to the war." The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. The humans, who had been threatened with extinction 10 years ago, were now in a position to dictate terms to their former oppressors. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Human Federation, flagship Unity, as it approached the Council's home world. The massive ship was one of the new super dreadnoughts, larger and more advanced than anything the Council had ever built. Around it, a fleet of 200 human vessels maintained perfect formation. But this wasn't a fleet coming to destroy. It was a fleet coming to heal. "Receiving docking clearance from Centauri Prime," reported Communications Officer Park. "They're directing us to the diplomatic landing area." Sarah nodded. After 10 years of war, she was tired of fighting. Humanity had proven their point. They had shown the galaxy that freedom was possible, that even the mightiest empire could be resisted and defeated. Now it was time to build something better. The Unity landed on the crystalline surface of Centauri Prime's capital spaceport. Sarah walked down the ramp, accompanied by representatives from dozens of former Council species. Humans, Altarians, Minervans, Xerians, and many others stood together as equals. They were met by a small delegation of Council officials, led by a figure Sarah recognized from old intelligence files. High Arbitrator Kethfer looked nothing like the confident alien who had delivered humanity's ultimatum 10 years ago. His silver eyes held defeat and something that might have been respect. "Admiral Chun," Kethfer said formally, "you have come far from the probe captain who first discovered our space." "We all have," Sarah replied. "The question now is where we go from here." The negotiations took place in the same chamber where humanity had first been ordered to surrender. But the roles were completely reversed. Now it was the Council that faced extinction, their empire reduced to a handful of core worlds, surrounded by hostile neighbors and former subjects. Kethfer sat across from Sarah at the negotiating table. With him were the few remaining Council leaders who still held any real power. On Sarah's side sat representatives from the Free Galaxy Alliance, the coalition of independent worlds that had formed around humanity's example. "Our terms are simple," Sarah began. "Complete dissolution of the Galactic Council as a governing body. All subjugated species to be granted immediate independence. All political prisoners to be released. All military forces to be disbanded except for local defense fleets." "You're asking us to destroy ourselves," Taishan protested weakly. "No," replied Ambassador Vextel, the former Council Admiral who now served as humanity's diplomatic advisor. "We're asking you to transform yourselves, to become what you always claimed to be, protectors instead of oppressors." Sarah leaned forward. "The galaxy doesn't need an empire. It needs cooperation between equals. We're proposing a new organization, the Galactic Federation. Every species gets one vote, regardless of size or power. Decisions are made by consensus, not force. And if we refuse? Kethfer asked, though he already knew the answer. Then you'll face the same choice you once gave us, Sarah said quietly. Submit to a new order, or face the consequences of standing alone against a united galaxy. The difference was clear to everyone present. Humanity had faced that choice when they were weak and isolated. The Council now faced it when they were defeated and surrounded by enemies of their own making. For 3 days, the Council leadership debated behind closed doors. Outside, the capital city of Centauri Prime was strangely quiet. The alien citizens watched the sky nervously, knowing that their entire way of life hung in the balance. On the 4th day, Taishan returned to the negotiating chamber. His ancient shoulders were bent with the weight of 50,000 years of failed policy. We accept your terms, he said simply. The formal signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Species that had never been allowed to speak now had voices in galactic affairs. Worlds that had been forced to serve others now governed themselves. The age of empires was ending, replaced by something unprecedented. A galaxy of free peoples choosing to work together. Kethvar signed the dissolution documents with hands that shook slightly. As he set down the stylus, he looked up at Sarah. Sean, I still don't understand, he said. How did you do it? How did one small species bring down an empire that lasted 50,000 years? Sarah considered the question carefully. You made a mistake that every empire in history has made. You believe that power comes from the ability to force others to obey. But real power comes from inspiring others to choose cooperation. We offered you peace and prosperity, Kethver protested. You offered us slavery disguised as protection, Sarah replied. There's a difference between helping someone and controlling them. You never learned that difference. As the ceremony concluded, representatives from hundreds of worlds celebrated the birth of the Galactic Federation. But Sarah felt no triumph, only exhaustion and hope. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Building a galaxy, based on freedom and cooperation, would be harder than destroying an empire based on fear and force. There would be disagreements, conflicts, and failures. Some species would struggle with the concept of self-governance, after millennia of being ruled by others. But for the first time in galactic history, every species would have the chance to determine their own destiny. Years later, historians would study the fall of the Galactic Council and puzzle over how such a powerful empire could collapse so quickly. They would write books about military tactics and technological advances, about economic factors and political movements. But Sarah knew the real answer was simpler than any of them imagined. Humanity had won because they remembered something the galaxy had forgotten, that freedom was not a gift to be granted by others, but a right to be claimed by oneself. When enough people remembered that truth, no empire could stand against it. The galaxy was free because one small blue planet had looked into the face of overwhelming power and said the most dangerous words in any language. No, thank you. In the end, that was all it took. The courage to say no when saying yes would be easier. The determination to stand up when staying down would be safer. The faith that freedom was worth any price, including death itself. The galaxy had learned that from humanity. And the galaxy would never forget Dot as the human fleet prepared to leave Centauri Prime. Kethver watched from his office window. The ships that had once been his enemies were now protectors of the peace they had all helped create. For the first time in his long life, Kethver smiled. Perhaps the humans had been right all along. Perhaps freedom really was better than the alternative. Age of Empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun.